Welcome back, everybody, to the Z-Man Show. Dustin, may the force be with you.
Force be with you, good
And,
sir.
and we are here to talk about the Rise of Skywalker. Sorry, so it's been a while since we've done a recording here, especially with Dustin on here. But guys, four of us went to go see Rise of Skywalker today. It's the main release day, not the midnight release, but all the same. And we're just going to throw out the statement that it's not as bad as the critics are saying. And I think we're starting to show this, Dustin, right? You were just checking Rotten Tomatoes,
Yep.
and the critics were showing what, a 57,
57, I think, yeah.
which is
Audience
rotten.
score is up to like 86 now.
86. Now, I want you all to think about that real quick, and let's rewind and let's get this out here. So, The Last Jedi, Episode 8, right? Critics were loving it, okay? I think it was in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
And all the people pretty much hated it. It tanked. It was low. I can't remember exactly how low, but it was low. Maybe we'll look it up here in a second. So now look what's happened here now. Now we've released Rise of Skywalker, and it's done the exact flip. The critics are pissed off because it looks like J.J. Abrams pretty much undid a lot of the stuff that Rian Johnson did, and the people seem to be loving it. Now, we're not going to say all people are loving it, because as we were just having some fun with a buddy of ours, Mike France, we're calling you out, because this guy, I mean, literally, we watched the movie, he felt like it was a pretty decent movie, and now, some 5 hours later, the dude's totally gone AWOL, and he's talking about how, I mean, like, what, Dustin? Like, he said it's a total piece of crap. He said he was get this.
Rewatching The Last Jedi.
He rewatched The Last Jedi and just realized what a great movie it truly was, and the message they were trying to get out. I'm just like, huh?
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
I mean, cocaine is a hell of a drug, and this boy is doing a lot. In fact, I think he said he was playing tennis on the moon with Dave Chappelle or something. I was like, how's the weather up there? Guys, this movie was not that bad. Now, true. Now, with that said, there were a lot of shortcomings throughout because of a rush storyline, right, Dustin?
Yeah, it wasn't perfect by any means.
Right.
And we won't spoil anything here for the first few minutes.
Yes.
In case you haven't seen the movie. A lot
We'll-
of you probably haven't yet. But
We'll keep it spoiler free just to let you know. Is it probably worth your time to go out and see? I mean, it's an average of about $11 per ticket, maybe $8 if you see a matinee. That's what we did today. We went earlier today. Well, let's talk about, let's see here. So the Rush storyline. So yes, I mean, they were making that comment, which Dustin, I wasn't too familiar with it, but they were talking about like chasing the MacGuffin, which I think it just means, I guess you're just chasing the next part of
the next thing, like here's
Right.
something that you need to get, and then it leads you to the next thing, which, I mean,
Isn't that what movies
kind of
usually?
what a lot of movies are.
Yeah, I mean, now mind you, it shouldn't be so blatant and obvious, but I mean, we both said it, Dustin, and because I think we had a great time and a great experience. I mean, we don't like to talk during movies, but we were making little comments here or there that like, oh shit, or watching this or that, and I mean, it was very entertaining. The visuals, I mean, I don't think you'll find
Absolutely.
a more
And
stunning.
I think for me, I was going in on eggshells, kind of.
Oh,
right?
God.
Just from,
So let's talk.
I mean,
let's,
not only the reviews, but like I'm in there on eggshells, just waiting for the moment where it loses me, and I'm like, oh, there it goes.
Right.
And it never happened.
It really didn't, and we both were. So I'll tell you right now, if you're watching this review, if you love The Last Jedi and everything what it's about, this review is not going to be for you, because neither of Dustin or I are aligned on that, or excuse me, are aligned with that movie. I mean, we are aligned, but basically the movie, it was no good. It was a waste of some solid characters. Luke mainly. I felt like Rey, they still wasted a bunch of time. They wasted a good portion of time on that stupid ass planet Canto Bite, with by the way, a mission that went nowhere. And if people were like, well, yeah, Mike, but things don't always work out. Missions don't. Yeah, but look at all the past Star Wars movies and stuff. When there were things that had to get done, they went on those missions knowing that it was like all in or nothing, because they are the rebellion, they are the resistance. They have very little chance of this happening, going to get this done, but they're going to try, and they're going to try as hard as they can. And it usually always worked out, with some character loss, but it happened.
And it just wasn't interesting. I feel like The Last Jedi was trying to set that tone of kind of defeat, right? Where
Yes.
they're at their
Yeah.
lowest point. But why do that with Finn and Rose, who are very uninteresting characters,
Sure.
on a place where we've never really heard of? And I guess it was an interesting idea of like a very wealthy place where you go to find the slicer, but like it just
There were some neat things they did with it, showing like the
didn't
selling
make
of the vehicles between the light side and the dark side, basically how they're playing both. I mean, all the third party sellers. those were neat. But anyways, back to Rise of Skywalker. You know, the movie, I think another hit on it, if you will, is probably the character development. But I think we disagree with my friends and also some of the critics on some of these because, like, Rey's character, I mean, I know a lot of people give her a ton of crap about being the Mary Sue, overpowered, totally OP. But I think I was feeling, I mean, they really focused on her a lot more, right,
Yeah,
Dustin?
I think so, and I think even more so than they did in the Last Jedi. And
Yeah.
her arc in the Last Jedi, or her development was pretty slim. Like it was her chasing Luke around, trying to get him to train her,
Right.
and you saw some of that, but it was very minimal.
Yeah, the training was a lot more interesting in this movie, if
I thought so
anything.
too. And her, you started to see that connection with her and Kylo, which I thought was interesting in the Last Jedi. I did like that part of it,
I
but
did too.
that's here still, and that's
It
expanded
is.
upon.
It
So
is.
I feel like she developed more in the Rise of Skywalker than she did in any of the other episodes. So I saw a lot of development in Rey, which is where you would want to like you have
Yes.
limited time, right, in the movie.
And I think that
So
was the point too, to show that she was much further along, which some could argue very easily that, yeah, but they already had her doing amazingly crazy things in the first two
yeah,
movies, which agreed. It's almost like they were trying to do that chosen one thing, which I don't agree with. I don't think Rey's a chosen one. I don't think that just anybody can get up and be an amazing Jedi. It takes years of training, you know, and devotion to the religion. And I mean, look at Yoda. I mean, if anything, he was probably the only one that really took straight into it. I mean, as we've seen in The Mandalorian, spoilers, sorry for Baby Yoda, but look at it, 50 years old, and look what that little Baby Yoda was able to do in episode 2. We won't say what, but it did something. And I was like, very interesting. Um, so yeah, if you're wondering if you need to go out and see this movie, you know, is it worth your time, or do you want to actually see how the saga ends? I suggest going out to see this movie. I really do.
yeah. And if you were disappointed with the Last Jedi, I will say that I thought this was redeeming.
It did some redeeming
Redeeming enough
qualities.
to watch it and end the saga. I think it ended on a pretty good note.
I mean, considering what they had to work with, and mind you,
Exactly.
you guys have to think about this, and we're going to talk about. And I mean, it's no spoiler. Everybody should know now, and if you don't, well, I don't know where you've been. The Emperor's back, right? And the way they brought him back, yeah, they slam you like right in the face, like from the beginning. It's like, yep, this is happening, and you know it's a little bit to take on, especially for a lot of those who want to overanalyze and be like, oh, but you know he was killed, you know, in episode 6, you know, and that makes Luke and Vader's sacrifice bullshit, and you know, totally negates all the previous movies. But does it though? I mean, that was still a story. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a story of things that had to happen. Just because the Emperor's still alive doesn't mean that Vader died for nothing. I mean, the
They
Emperor
still saved countless numbers of millions of people
they
from
did,
that
and the
stuff.
and the Emperor would have killed Luke, you know. And I mean, there's everything has a repercussion and a reason that goes down the line. So I'm not buying into this negative sauce like that. It just negates all the previous movies. And like, no, they all still happen, and they happen for a reason. And now, mind you, if Kathleen Kennedy and some of those other crazy, you know what's, want to try and erase our past, you know, good luck trying. You'll never do it. But I think a lot of us agreed, and we talked about it. You can almost go from episode 7 to 9, almost. I mean, there's some things. And by the way,
And that's
there's
how I'll watch it.
right. I mean, my kids had it on the other day, and I just kept rolling my eyes. I was just like, why can't I just get into this movie? And I mean, honestly, there was a lot of great Luke scenes, and I think that's another reason why a lot of people are going to be a little PO'd at episode 9. You're going to be missing some Luke. He's not in there very much. We already heard about some of the accounts how basically George Lucas came in, right, to do some specific scenes with, Mark Hamill, and also with Hayden Christensen. And Kathleen Kennedy ended up going back, and like you said, Dustin, dude, I think time constraints. They didn't want to make it a 3-hour movie. Not to mention, they just wanted to make it more for the masses, like not for the super diehard fans. I think that was a poor decision. I think it could have been a lot better movie. What do you
When you
think?
look at Avengers Endgame and how it ended the saga, that movie was over 3 hours, and
Yeah,
people still obviously a lot of people went and saw it.
and they rated it
Um,
high. They rated it real high.
I think this movie needed more time. I think it's worth watching still. I would recommend
Yes.
everyone go see it. I think my biggest complaint, or like when I think of this movie, is what JJ had to work with, and
Right.
you have to kind of fix where the movie was going from 8 to
So
make it salvageable.
they killed Snoke, which was a very interesting, you know, villain and extremely powerful, right?
Yes.
Instead, they chop him up, And now it's basically focused on Kylo and Kylo alone. And I said it back then, and I'll still say it now. Kylo was not set up to be a supervillain. He never was. And maybe if they
He
would,
was always on a redemption arc. I feel like it was always
yeah,
about him being redeemed. Even in eight, like it toyed with that with him and Ray, and I feel like that was his path the whole time. So it's
right,
like you have to have somebody pulling the strings at a higher level, and I don't think Ryan Johnson ever planned that out to be the emperor. We
no,
talked about this.
right,
This was a Hail Mary, like we've got to get something in here to save this. And if
absolutely,
the emperor would have been teased in eight after Snoke had died,
yes,
totally changes my mind about kind of that was one of my biggest
it was the
complaints about that
setup.
movie was it was subverting expectations just for the sake of subverting expectations. Like,
And this is what happens when you have multiple directors. And I talked about, well, we were on the phone earlier, Dustin. I said, since when are the directors great writers all of a sudden, right? I mean, yes, some can write and whatever, like Nolan and some of the others, but I'm like, you have but different ones wanting to put their stamp on it, saying, "Oh no, this was my writing, my ideas." Like that is not going to work, because it's going to be different from person to person. The chance of you find someone that's just completely aligned and directing star. So the fact that they only had two directors and not three is probably a miracle right there. Like, is it Colin Trevorrow? I think,
yeah,
yeah, that backed out. Probably because he had better ideas. I'd be curious to see what kind of movie he
I
did
know
make.
I would be interested to see what that would have looked like, but
Well, you never will, and maybe we'll see an extended version of Rise of Skywalker. It's
yeah,
hard to say. God, I tell you what, if I thought I heard they're going to add some of those Luke scenes into the deleted scenes, but I swear to you, if we watch those and they're like legit, I mean, we're all going to be kicking ourselves, I think, a little bit on this one. But with that said, I mean, we've gone over a little bit over what we went about 10 minutes on non spoilers, but I think that gives you guys a pretty good idea. And by the way, this was from, I should say now, 3 out of 4 people that went to see the movie. We all really enjoyed it. The fourth,
oh,
well,
including my wife went too, and
oh,
so
I'm
did
sorry. What am I talking about? Emily. Sorry, Emily, if you're watching. Emily went too, and she's not
she's
even.
not a diehard
No.
Star Wars fan, but she really enjoyed the movie. And this
Yeah.
whole thing about there not being enough emotion or character development, I there were a couple times where I know she was feeling it, and like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there were tears coming out, but she was definitely feeling the emotion.
I
I could
was
see it.
I always get it to the
Feel it.
corners. I don't know what it
Yeah,
is, but I talked to you about the one with Leia. It's like I don't know what it was, but finally, well, here we go. So well, let's go ahead and throw spoilers in there. Again, this should really be known, but here we go. So back out if you want to go see it and you don't want to know anything else. But yeah, when she finally did go, which she did a self sacrifice herself to really kind of save Rey at a key point in time when Ben's about to strike her ass down and she goes in. But man, when she put that blade in him too, I don't know. But anyways, still a lot going on there. But yeah, when seeing Leia there on the table finally, it finally kind of started hitting me a little bit. Not like I was bawling, but I was just kind of like, wow, that is really sad. You know,
yeah,
it's ending a long story.
right.
You
Yeah,
know. And when Luke, see, in the way that when Luke went, and I want to get on to a freaking tangent with Last Jedi, but when he went, I think it was more like just shock, kind of like, this is a joke, right? You're not really killing him off like that,
right.
right? And it just, that emotional tie wasn't there.
Just for them to escape out the back, which they could have done anyway.
Right?
And
Um,
I guess that's the thing. Like Leia saved Rey. Like
yes, she did.
there was immediate
So,
danger there
the whole
that
point.
she saved her.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Luke in The Last Jedi, yeah, sure he stalled the First Order, but like they ended up just escaping out
Yeah,
of the like out of the back end.
yeah,
So
because
like
I think Ray ended up moving the rocks and stuff like that. But all the
yeah,
point, they could have at least tried instead of.
yeah.
Oh God, I feel so bad for Mark Hamill. I mean, I really do. I mean, I hope he gets out there and just reams, and he will, because he's not under contract anymore, so he'll do what he needs to do. But I can't wait to hear his talk and understanding what could have been. And by the way, could this movie have probably been a 9 easy? No, because
No.
because of what happened in 8. I mean, you have 2 directors, and I'm not whether you believe Ryan Johnson, whether you believe J.J. Abrams, but either way, they totally were against each other. I mean,
Yes,
you're talking light and
absolutely.
dark side right there, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
this movie was never going to be the great ending we wanted, but as we were watching, as Dustin and I are saying, we still felt like enthralled in it. Like I felt like,
Yeah,
okay, we're moving on to this mission now. And yes, when they found a few of the items, when they found that dagger in the sand, and it was just kind of like right there, and but which movies have done before, and I for a second there I was kind of like, really, just right there. But we're already kind of moving on to the next part of the story. So I was like, well, you know what? I'm not going to dwell on it.
Yeah.
Let's get on to the next step. And
Yep.
I know France's point. This is our buddy who now suddenly thinks this was a big pile of heaping stuffs. At 5 out of 10, he's calling it. See, at Angry Joe, he got into his brain,
Yeah.
and he thinks that
I,
they're aligned. I'm telling you, Joe is angry because he's just angry. I mean, I'm sorry, Joe. I love a lot of your content, but I think you're just like our other buddy said. You just kind of want to see everything burn. And
yeah.
let's face it, a lot of our viewers want to see a review that is just hounding it. We're not going to do that today. We're going to hound it on some things, but that's not what we're here for.
Yeah.
Not on this movie. So, Dustin, let's talk about.
Yeah. Let's go back. Let's start at the.
Let's talk. So, the first act. The first act was pretty action packed, right?
Yeah. I
And
mean, it was all pretty action packed, and
no, that's true. That's a good
I think
point.
you start out with the opening crawl, and seeing the Emperor message like right in your face. I think that was like surprising to me that it was there already. The Emperor's alive. He's sending out messages
Yes.
to.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, okay.
Yeah,
they're
here we
just
go.
jumping right into that. And again, I think we talked about this. I guarantee you, JJ had a different version of that where it built up from the beginning, and the Emperor kind of got worked in.
Yeah.
But they probably slashed it all down for time to say like, no, we need to make this shorter. Boom, we're just going to throw the Emperor into the opening crawl, and that's where we're going to start.
Absolutely.
And again, if this was teased in 8, this wouldn't be a problem.
No.
If this was
We would
if
have
this
plenty
was
of
actually
time.
planned in 8, and we knew that the Emperor was behind everything, which would have been a great way to kind of tease that all
Tease
out.
it into the next one, and then
Yeah.
everybody's like, "Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it."
I would have, dude. My feelings about The Last Jedi would have been very different if at the end of the movie, even after everything that happened, if they would have teased something about the Emperor was kind of pulling the strings there, or like he
Right.
kind of called to Kylo at the end saying like, "Come, I need to see you, I need to speak to you," or whatever.
And told us who Rey's parents and showed that conflict in her earlier
Yeah.
on. Instead, what JJ had basically 2 movies worth to get done in 1 movie's worth of time, 2 hour and 20 minutes, right?
Yep.
And I know I was talking to friends about this too. Is like seeing her conflict in just one. It doesn't feel like it's enough. It's kind of like she had to make quick split decisions about who she really is. Is she going to stay as a big time spoiler, a Palpatine, and go to the dark side? Or is she going to stay with Luke and Leia and stay and be literally the last Jedi who can train future generations? So it's a big deal, right? And let's face it, probably not enough to get done in an hour period, which is about how long she had to basically contemplate this stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
go
we
ahead.
go from the opening crawl into Kylo, basically on a mission to find this Sith Wayfinder, I believe is what they called it.
Okay.
A little pyramid-shaped object
Holocron
that
looking thing.
led them to Palpatine, basically.
That's
And
right.
dude, I'm telling you, I was on eggshells the whole movie, but like it started off with him, and like I was down, like seeing
Yeah.
him rip through like the kind of the battles that they were showing.
Yeah.
I don't know what planet they were on, but early
Some-
on they were just kind
yeah.
of mulling through these people, and he had his lightsaber going, and he just looked determined. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm down for that, and it was really good, and it
And
had me.
and even when he showed up, and although a very quick set of scenes with him and the Emperor and stuff like that, I mean, the Emperor, he would have talked him into it either way, or probably
Yeah.
had him killed. So it was the only way it was going to go
Yeah.
for Kylo Ren. But Kylo said, "Okay, I can." Kylo kind of saw in his mind where he thought he could betray the Emperor. I know the Emperor's already planning on betraying Kylo, which that was never really led on to. But let's face it, the Emperor's only ever
Yeah.
been about himself.
Right.
All the whole thing with Vader and bringing over Anakin and he needed him as a henchman, but it was never going to be Vader. It was always going to be Palpatine on that throne. So it was very interesting to see the very end, which we'll get to in a bit, and his choices for Rey, his line. But yeah, like you said, a lot of great opening scenes, very action-packed and thrilled. We see a battered resistance, but they are hanging out on a jungle planet. A lot of people were saying Endor or Yavin 4. I don't think so. I think it was just another planet in general.
Yeah.
We haven't got any confirmation on that yet, but all the same, it was very pleasant to look at. And we see Leia in there with some scenes, and I guess maybe some of you might be wondering, how did that really work out? And honestly, it wasn't as odd as I thought it was going to
No,
be.
not at all.
No. And yeah, I mean, as a filmmaker, and Dustin, you've seen the things we do sometimes with tricking things, the handoff of the lightsabers and certain things. Yeah, it was probably reused footage, but I never stopped and said, Oh, I don't. That's not
Yeah, I
looking
was
right.
never in
Or
disbelief. It was never like, oh wow, that's really out of place. Didn't feel that way at all.
no.
So I thought that was well done. The So when we first see Finn and Poe and Chewie in the
Oh
Falcon,
yeah, they're
they
getting some kind of
get some
a
intel.
message from
Yeah.
a spy, which we end
Yep.
up finding what the spy is, and that was pretty intense. Yeah, the Tie fighters were following, very tight quarters. The humor, might as well hit on this while we're just talking
Yeah.
these pieces. The humor in this movie was legit, guys. It wasn't. Go ahead, Dustin.
Yeah, it was excellent. It was we talk about episode 8 and how the humor really landed flat, and
Totally
it was
flat.
poor timing and just poor humor. It just wasn't funny. And I feel like this movie, all of it landed for me. I don't think there was really any humor there. I was like, okay, that
No.
was a little corny. It was all funny.
Yeah, I remember.
Droids were great. Poe was great. Finn even had some good lines in there.
He did. Finn was a whole nother character in this movie. Well,
Yes.
I mean, he still has this screaming thing, Ray, and this and that. Which again, I can't help like a little eye roll when he does that. But I mean, I was kind of like, wow, I actually am not annoyed to watch you do the things you're doing. Like I felt it felt right, especially, and that's saying a lot after what he did in 8, or excuse me, what they had him do in 8. Which again, he's just following the script, so you gotta feel what you feel. But yeah, Act One pretty solid. But again, it was very quick pace. Things moving on to the next
Yes.
one stuff. But again, I guess I was just so enthusiastic about just seeing how they're going to get from point A to the point F. Which is obviously the Emperor and how it's going to end out. We know it's going to end with the Emperor, right? I mean, that was pretty much a given. But with the amount of power and seeing what he was able to do over that span of years and the fleet he built up. But I mean, there are valid, what do you want to call it, problems, I guess, with some of the theory and that even the fleet he built, because the fleet didn't even feel that menacing at the very end. Because yes, our initial band of rebels, they get in there getting their asses totally handed to them because they're a small band of rebels. But then by the time the full band comes in, which I know I'm skipping ahead, but I'm just making a point that the movie did have flaws. We are mentioning that yes,
Yep.
there were some issues with the story, but again, if you're along for a ride and I think if you can sit down and watch a movie and feel like you're there and following along with these characters like you're there with them, I think then they've done a pretty decent job of directing and producing the film, right? Some of the other humor as they finally make their way. So they find this dagger. It's got that inscription on it, which basically tells them how to find this last. What did you call it again, Dustin? The
I
Sith.
think it's the fifth Wayfinder.
The
Is what they
Wayfinder.
called it.
Yeah. So basically, able to find the secret planet that Palpatine, which is the home planet, mind you, of the Sith. That Mike Appel, thank you for that, calling that out because I didn't know that. Apparently, it was in like Knights of the Old Republic or some of the other
Okay.
old games. Didn't know it. So I will say, it's nice to have that backstory. And again, this is where little tidbits of just little 1 minute, 2 minute scenes could have really added a lot of extra
Yeah.
understanding.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, they make it to the desert planet, which was the desert planet was Pisana. I had to write that down, and then they find the dagger, and then they're moving on. Oh, what about before we get on to the next planet of Kajimi? What about Chewie on that transport, or at least what we thought was the
Let's
transport?
go back even a little further.
Oh,
So
sorry.
when they
Okay.
find the dagger,
Okay.
and C-3PO actually deciphers it, and he can read the message and he can read
He can't read
where
back.
the Wayfinder is, but he's programmed that where he can't
He can't
kind of
speak Sith.
can't speak the Sith language. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. Where
It was.
he was like, he goes, yeah, no, I could read it. And he's like, well, they're like, what does it say?
He's like, okay,
Like, I'm not allowed to speak in them. So they had to find some way to get that
right. That's the next.
out of him, which is kind
MacGuffin.
of why they went to this next place. So like people talk about MacGuffins and I don't know, barriers in a story to make you get to the next thing. I thought that was a really interesting thing to do with C3PO to say like, oh yeah, it's here, but like I'm programmed, I can't do that. So
Let me make an analogy real quick. You know Indiana Jones movies, right, Dustin?
yeah,
Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. When basically the dad's Sean Connery's been captured, right? And so Indy is. Remember, they're down in the catacombs and they're searching for the next clue, which leads to the next clue. They're trying to get to the Grail, right? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that in a way still the same? And if you want to
National Treasure.
yeah. Oh God. Well, we might dog on that movie a little bit, Nick Cage. But if anybody wants to dog on Last Crusade, we'll have words.
Yeah.
We'll have words in the commentary section. But I'm just saying that a lot of movies, like, you have to get the clue that leads to the next thing. That leads to the next thing. I mean, And no one, I mean, you're going to be really pissed off if they just literally just go, oh, look,
Right.
he's right there.
Oh, there's Palpatine over there. Hey, let's go talk to him.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what do you want? Do you want the story? And if you're saying, well, no, I want a nice long path. Well, you better talk to your boy Ryan Johnson and J.J. Abrams and ask them why they couldn't align. And mind you, forget the directors. Let's talk about Kathleen Kennedy, head of Star Wars, and you couldn't get a decent plan out for these movies. I don't want to go on a. We can go on a tangent on her alone and the leadership, right? Do you have any thoughts on that? Right?
It was obviously not a cohesive
Plan.
story.
No.
No plan.
In fact,
From
it's proved. They said that they were writing episode 8 when I think episode 7 was still being finished off. So there you go, right there.
Like, you don't have to have all the details fleshed out, but like there should be the main arc of that story.
Arc and the
Should
end
be-
end
I
game.
mean, it should be done before you even start shooting the first one, so you know where you want to go. And that was evident that didn't happen. There were a lot of things that JJ did in this movie that you like. It's a clear retraction of The Last Jedi. Like, it's very clear that he's
Totally.
going back to try to
Yeah.
erase some things or fix some things that in his mind were like,
Yeah.
I was setting this up in 7, so now I get the chance to go back
and fix it in the end.
and fix it.
Yeah.
And it's clear.
oh,
That's clear
gosh.
that's happening.
It totally, and I think that's why the critics are dogging this movie as bad as
Sure.
they are. Not all of them,
Yeah.
but a good 43%. Which that's sizable compared to the last one in episode 8. It's ridiculous. But when I'm seeing, I feel like I'm not crazy, Dustin. I feel like you're not crazy because we have, and again, this is only on Rotten Tomatoes, but even we're seeing the score on IMDb, which is currently at a 6.9, which, mind you, is not a bad movie. On IMDb, if you're ever wondering, I found that anything that falls literally under a 5.0, is pretty much like you don't even bother watching it. That's how bad it really is. Acting, story, plot. But this one is going to continue to rise. It won't ever make it to the 8s probably, but I think it'll make it a solid
it'll be at
7. Yeah.
Yeah. As more people see it this weekend, it's going to go up for sure.
And I'd like to revisit this, and we probably will later on. But yeah, I just be very careful when you. If you've seen this movie and you want to dog it as you do, I'd say I'd be curious to talk to you a little bit about it and see what you're. But again, if you can't get past the whole idea of the Ryan Johnson versus J.J. Abrams, the styles, the story, and this fan service that they keep talking about, Dustin. Let's talk about just a second about that too.
I've heard so much about this egregious fan service that's just so in your face that it's so distracting and.
Other than the Emperor, which the Emperor was a major fan. I gotta be honest. When I saw the trailer and I heard that laugh, I was just kind of like, huh, what was that? And I got excited in a way, but I wasn't immediately thinking, oh, what are they doing? They're screwing over Vader and Luke and episode, and they're rewriting stuff. I'm like, no. If anything, as we both know, Dustin, they're bringing back a worthy villain to finish off this saga. It's finishing a trilogy, but it's finishing a 9 movie saga.
Yeah. You can't finish that with Kylo Ren.
No, you can't.
Being the villain. Like,
no. And especially as conflicted as he's been. And even in the end, and seeing how pissed off he was at Luke and stuff like that, which, mind you, we didn't see a piece of that in episode 9. But just seeing his anger, I'm just like, you are still that angry, conflicted young man. I'm not going to say a child or a teen, because he's clearly probably, in his late 20s,
and there
early
were definitely
30s.
some scenes. Like, I actually really liked Adam Driver's performance in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. Dude was legit. He might have been one of the best.
Fantastic. And I've always had, like, Kylo Ren for me has always been kind of hit or miss. Like, I always said with his helmet on, he's very different.
I heard you when you were sitting there when he got his helmet rebuilt, and I can't remember what you said, but I was like, I remember you saying, you were very happy, and showing the line cracks and.
Yeah, and it changed a little bit. So, like, in episode 7, when he took his helmet off the first time, I was like, oh my god, like, I'm not scared of this guy at all.
He kind of looked pretty boy until he got his scars from Rey and so forth, right?
But I will say, in the start of this movie, before he had his helmet back, he was still pretty menacing in a lot of the fight scenes as he was leading up.
Yeah, he had hardened.
He looked much better. But man, when they reforged his helmet and it had like the little line marks with it showed they like welded it together. Mm-hmm. I thought it looked pretty badass. Mm-hmm. And then he had that scene in the conference room. Kind of the conference room with all the leaders of the First Order, and
The one guy was questioning him, basically saying,
yeah.
I don't see how this isn't, I mean, without, he just lifted him up. And what I love
Oh,
about Kylo and showing his strength, Ben's strength, notice he, like Vader, remember, I mean, he usually, when he had somebody in choke, he usually had him gripped. I mean, he was never
yeah.
at stance. Notice how he's usually done, and the character or
They're
whatever's
still
happening
there.
is still going on.
Yeah.
That's how strong he is. And, seeing the force powers, and people they're gonna bitch about that too, but seeing those new force powers, I thought was refreshing.
Yeah. I
not
did
just
too.
not just your standard force push, not your your super jumps and stuff like that, which they had some of that too, which was really cool. But when they finally showed Rey healing, and I want to talk about this, when they showed her healing that snake thing underneath on the
Yeah.
desert planet of the sun or whatever, so Appel brought up a good point, and I think I can buy into this. Is like she was saying that she was reading all of the old Jedi text and so forth, and
Mhm.
whatever. Which, mind you, I don't think any other Jedi actually took the time to do, other than probably Yoda and maybe a handful of others.
Yeah.
So I could be easily thought of that. Basically, she had learned some things, and was basically honing her powers, and maybe they're still a bit OP, but all the same. And then, yes, I know they healed it as a foreshadow or a pre-shadow or whatever the hell you call that of what was going to happen later on. Now, do we know that it was going to be to heal Kylo? No, I didn't think it would be him. I thought it'd be a friend.
Yeah, and I know you're not up to speed on Mandalorian, but
Oh,
this is teased in Mandalorian as well.
oh, cool. Okay, well, I'm looking
So
forward to that then.
I think that's why they've released that episode a little early.
Okay.
And that's so
Okay.
when they're talking about the link between the Mandalorian and the Rise of Skywalker,
Okay.
that's the link, and
Cool.
it's minimal, it's very small,
Okay.
and it's like if you didn't see it,
Yeah.
it's not gonna make any sense in the movie, but there is a little bit of I think they're trying to place that into the Mandalorian too, because that's set just after the fall of the Empire in 6, right? So
Right.
it's kind of
Yeah,
in
not
the
long after.
trilogy. So they're putting that in that it was it's an ability that
Cool.
has been around. So
And that's
but yeah,
nice that they did that, and pulling it together.
that I don't know.
Well,
I
you
didn't
had-
see that and think like, oh my god, like what are they doing? Like
Yeah.
that was very different than Leia flying out into space after being blown up and then automatically coming back to life and flying back
Yeah,
into the spaceship.
that
Like,
was the
that kind of
extreme.
stuff is like, okay.
That went to the extreme. I mean, and people are like, no, the healing's just extreme. I beg to differ big time on that one. Big time. It's just,
Yeah,
you're not even the same realm.
They explained it briefly, but well. It was like I'm transferring my life force to this
Yeah.
other being.
Right. And they played on that a lot in this movie, especially the ending, which we'll get to in just a bit. But, and I know we're getting a little over 30, but you know what? There's a lot going on in this movie, and when we ranted on some things because they need to be ranted on, So if you're still with us, thanks for joining in all the same. Make sure to leave comments also below if you did not enjoy this movie, or if you are going to plan on going to see this, or not going to see it for that matter, and why. I would really love to hear it, and I know Dustin will too. He'll answer comments as well. So as we move in, this is kind of brief. Let's get into second act. So second act, I thought the pace did not stop. It pretty much kept going. We were still continuing the story, the chase, and they go to Kijimi to basically find this droid hacker that can get into 3PO's brain to get him to speak the Sith, and so they can find out where the device is, right?
Yep. And then they run into Poe's old girlfriend.
Which that was interesting in itself, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like awkward or this or that, and you got to learn. And I think Poe used to be a spice runner, as they called it.
Spice runner. Yeah.
And there's a cool little comedic scene, like they're like, "You were a spice runner," and like goes, "I'm sorry, weren't you a stormtrooper?"
Right.
and then he's like, "You were a spice runner," and then now he's looking at Ray and goes, "And I'm sorry, and you were a scavenger." He goes, "We can do this all day," and it's those little banters of humor in between which kept things lively and still kind of put a smile on your face, even though we know these are dire times for these characters. Right?
Yep.
Talk about the little guy.
What was his name?
Babu Freak. Or
Babu.
or Baba Frick. It was one Freak or Frick,
Babu
whatever.
Frick.
But this
I mean-
he's speaking a whole other language, but I mean he's just they go over you're expecting to see some decent sized alien or
You see a big alien initially.
Yeah,
when
prepping.
the camera comes in, you see this big alien, and it's like that's gotta be the guy, and then it pans over, and it's like this little bitty tiny little alien
he's like
guy.
Baba Tibida, boy.
Yeah, with wires, yeah.
I mean, it was legit, and at one point he does speak English. He goes mind wipe or something like that, or mind black or something like that, and
Yeah, because the whole thing was he couldn't get to
Yeah.
3PO's memory part without erasing his whole.
And
His,
I had a feeling because they did mention R2 had the backup, which he said's
yeah.
unreliable. Again, we could all pretty much foreshadow that was going to happen. He was going to get something back. But I mean, when he was saying I was taking one last look at my friends, the trailer didn't really hit me, but I was like, oh, 3PO,
Yeah.
So I was like
Yeah.
that. So the idea there's no emotion in this, I'm like, oh, are you heartless? I mean, do you
Right.
have, or by the way, are you even paying attention? Do you even want to be here watching this movie?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, Dustin, myself, Franz, except he turned to the dark side now, but a lot of us, honestly, we're really contemplating, do we even kind of want to see that? We want to see the movie, but is it really worth our time? We know it's going to be
Oh yeah. My
uh,
expectations were so low. I was like,
they couldn't get
this is
lower.
just going to be terrible.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want to act like I was losing sleep over a movie, but last night for a good hour, as before I was getting ready to finally pass out, I was just sitting there. I'm like, this movie can't be as bad as they're saying. It can't be. I mean, it can't be. And again, for some like friends, maybe it's finally come to a recollection that it is. But I'll tell you, I'm not there, and we've seen a lot of movies, and not one point did I sit this movie and be like, I can't watch anymore,
Right.
or
Yeah.
I gotta leave.
And I was looking for it. I was looking for that point
I
where it's
was
like,
too.
okay, I'm done. Like they'd lost me here. I'm out, and I never got there. And like it was so funny because until the credits rolled,
Hmm.
like I'm still very hesitant. Well, oh my God, what's gonna
What's
happen
next?
now
What's
to where
next?
they're
What's
just gonna
next?
totally screw something up?
Sure.
Never happened.
Yeah.
Never happened for me. The credits rolled, and I'm like, I was gonna clap. Like I was wanting to clap to like, oh my God, like that was
Hmm.
actually really good. But then I'm
Yeah.
still kind of in disbelief of,
Yeah.
you know,
And
like
did you? And
why didn't it?
I'm replaying it. Was anybody clapping at the end of the movie? I don't think they really
No,
were. But they. I mean, I don't think
we
it
didn't
was
have any
like
claps.
no. I know Joe made a comment about how I think one audience did clap and the other one didn't. But I got to be honest, I've only been in a couple movies in my entire life where actually the crowd surged afterwards.
Yeah.
Um,
Dark Knight Rises was the one I remember for me.
yeah.
Yeah, not many, not
And,
many.
and mind you, again, this movie still could have been a lot better. We're not giving this movie
Oh yeah,
like an 8.5 or a 9 or 9.5 for that matter. I know you and Mike were tending to go a little bit higher as an appel. Francis was at the lowest, and then I was somewhere in the middle, which is surprising. Usually I'm a lot more lenient, but I think there are some decent things to talk about in that third act, which I think. If you're gonna put a huge presence of something in, like this massive fleet, like they showed, okay. I mean, I couldn't count the Star Destroyers; they were just ridiculously off the chain.
yeah,
Now, the idea that he had time to build them, or the people build them all, but also, it's a good point that Franz brought up. Where do you get all the people to man those things? I mean, true, you probably only need a flight deck of like maybe 15 to 20 people to fly a Star Destroyer, but I mean, are these things fully manned? Are there like 5 stormtroopers per Star Destroyer just chilling in the bays? Like, well, I hope nobody comes in this bitch or we're
right,
screwed.
yeah,
I mean, not
yeah. That's true.
they couldn't
It
all
is a
been
big
manned,
galaxy, but I
right?
mean, there are a lot of there were a lot of Star Destroyers for sure.
There
Yeah,
were, and now I kind of now having the technology that they had basically built on every single one of those, which was basically like a mini Death Star. I mean, it's
yeah.
not like a complete like immediate wipe, but I mean, we saw it with Kajimi, which I mean, remind me, Dustin, did they do that to Kajimi to send a message to the rebels, basically, kind of saying, "Come get us" or whatever?
I think so. I'm trying to remember back to a while
Because
back.
the Emperor said that if Rey comes, her friends will follow. That I understand. But then they took the time to fly that Star Destroyer over there and actually take out Kajimi, where it all happened. And I remember the rebels kind of seeing like they destroyed Kajimi. So I assume that it's like it was a message to the rebels saying
Yeah,
like
it's a threat. It's a show of force to say,
we're calling you
you know,
out.
yeah, don't step up, or this is what's going to happen to your planet.
And if people are like, "Wow, that's just too over the top," that number one, we've already seen the technology change greatly through these movies. I mean, Jesus, look at the size of those Imperial ships in
Yeah.
Episode 8, right? I know I'm calling it out, Jesus Lord. I will admit though, the ships were pretty badass in 8. I will say that. And even at the end when whatever her name was, purple hair
Uh,
woman lord, yeah, she basically hyperdrives through the one. I will admit that was a badass scene. I
oh,
mean,
sure.
it
Yeah.
was very cool.
Yeah.
But to see the old style Imperial Star Destroyer now again, is that fan service? I guess. I mean, they could have changed them up. I don't think I'm gonna be like, oh, what the hell are these? I mean, it's an Imperial ship. I mean, they can look however they want it to look. But yeah, they called him out with the weapon, and you know what? Those I always wondered about Star Destroyers because they always sounded so menacing. But if you really think about all the other Star Wars movies, you never really saw them do a whole lot,
Yeah,
like from bombardments and things like that. They probably
right.
should have weaponry like that to begin with, or at least very similar, right?
Yeah,
So, anyways, let's talk about Act Three and basically Rey and everybody else getting to the planet.
yeah. So I think I well let's talk about
Or
so Ray
you
gets
want to talk about
Ray
Kef
gets
Bir,
to
the Ocean Moon?
the ocean moon where they're headed to find the Wayfinder, and you have the big ocean waves,
It's all
and
part of the Death Star.
they meet Jana, is that her
Jan,
name?
Jana,
So they meet Jana, and they find out that a lot of those, or all of those folks are stormtroopers that had,
defected stormtroopers.
yeah, they defected. The whole unit did. That was kind of a cool story.
Like
I mean,
Finn's not the
emotional
only
in its
one.
own right, because they're. I think Finn had a very similar experience in Seven, right, where they
Yes.
were told to fire on the civilians, and he didn't. His unit did.
Yeah, the rest of
He
his
gets
peoples
back, and
did.
then that's when he was like, "All right, I'm out." But this whole unit refused. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then you see that Ray has taken the
Oh, that's
what do they
GIF.
call it? The skipper
Oh,
over
God.
the waves and
Over the
out into
waves.
the demolished Death Star to find his
Pretty
finder.
intense seeing those water waves get up
Oh
to,
man!
good God, 100 yards up into the sky or more. I don't know. It's a
And then
lot.
gets to the Wayfinder and then sees like that dark version of herself from the trailer.
Very cool scene.
Cool scene.
I didn't expect her to. I thought it was just gonna be like a flashback or something. But
Yeah, I did too.
it was basically a similar scene to Luke in the cave
Yeah,
and fighting Darth Vader, and then of course he sees himself in Darth
right.
Vader. So this was neat because this time her dark side is talking to her. I mean, it's really trying to draw her in and be like, "Don't be afraid. You know, this is who you are." Finally, and obviously Rey's majorly conflicted, and I thought that was a very neat scene.
Yeah, very cool. She stumbles out to sea
Oh, and then
Kylo
yeah, I think
in that whole big battle.
there were a whole lot of like, where the hell did you come
Yeah,
from?
how did he get there?
Which I get it, the connection and stuff like that. But even at times, like we could see when she was in his quarters, right?
Yeah,
Until something happened to basically change, the connection. And when Vader's helmet hit, and she saw that in his realm, he was like, oh, that's. But I loved it. Like he's never like in a hurry. He's always like, he goes,
oh yeah,
oh, that's where you are. You know,
yeah.
it's
There.
yeah,
But
very
like,
menacing.
so it moves into that whole fight scene, which I thought was great. I thought
This is a decent fight.
the kind of on the outside of that demolished Death Star. Now I don't get why Finn feels like he needs to rush to her side
I,
to do
I
what? Like I don't know what he thinks he's gonna
I
do.
think that's been the most annoying thing about Finn at all times. It's like, does he love Ray like that, or is it something?
Well, there's the other part of this is he was trying to say something to her in that sand planet when they fell through the sand, and
Right.
it never came out. So he
No.
said,
And then he's
I
like,
need
"I'll
to
tell you later."
something. I'll tell you later." It never happened. So like, and my wife told me that after the movie, she's like, "We never got the."
So
you're
he
like,
never did say to her.
No.
I wonder. I wonder if it's that he knew that Leia knew who she was.
Yeah, I
I
don't know.
that's the only real big reveal that I could feel that maybe I don't think Finn probably knew who she was, but I think he knew that Leia knew. Anyways, up the chain
Yeah,
of
I don't
command.
know what it would have been, but anyway, the fight
We'll
scene
never
between
know. Yeah, fight scene
fight
was
scene
legit.
between
Oops, sorry.
Kylo and Ray was intense.
Very intense.
I mean, she was losing.
And that's what I
And
loved
you
about
kind of
it.
mentioned the scene earlier about Leia, like she knew what
Yeah.
she had to do, and basically gave the rest of her self to stop him.
I
And
think
distract
JJ
him.
thought about that too in this one. I think he changed it up instead of her being like again that just OP. I mean, clearly she wasn't that
Yeah,
OP, guys, because Kylo bested her and he bested her good. I mean, she was tired. She was done. She was done. He was gonna kill her. So if you want to, keep going back to she's so overpowered, whatever like that. No, Ben ended up winning, or Kylo, excuse me, not Ben, yeah, really. But yeah, last minute Leia pops in there as just and I can buy that because it's the only thing that ever really made Kylo flinch. Like
yeah,
remember when he was in the ship and he was about to come down on the command center in 8, and then it was I think it was his side
hmm
members ended up taking it out. But yeah, it did, and it was just enough for her to. And when I say her, oh god, Ray to basically take that blade and just go right into him. So, and which I was like, wow. At first, I was like, holy crap, are they really killing Kylo
I
off?
know, I did too. I thought, oh my God, he's gonna die.
Right, but then
And then
she
I
healed him.
quickly realized that she was gonna heal him. Yeah.
Right, and she did, and basically, and I love that line she kind of said to her. She goes, I was going to take your hand as Ben,
Yeah.
not who this, not,
Yeah.
and I think it sad made him think, and I think if people were, if they want to argue about, may he was turned too quickly or whatever, I think he was still always on the line. It's just he never had enough to really bring him there. And then when we had the surprise cameo from Harrison Ford to come
Yeah.
back and talk to him, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I did too.
I thought the lines were okay. I don't think they were anything super stunning. And again, Kylo's still trying to hold back and just be like, no, that man's gone, this and that. But he finally realizes it. And when he does, it got exciting for me because I was like, think of the potential that this guy could have fighting
Oh yeah.
for the right side for once. Well, in my eyes, the right side, right? The
They
light side.
basically they redid the scene of him and Han from Seven, just with a different outfit.
Yeah, yeah. And
But
said he tosses that
he's like, I know what I
lightsaber.
need to do. I just don't know if I have the strength. And
He says, you do.
Han says, I like you do, son. You have it.
Which
And
again, it's obviously it's not like Han's a force ghost or some shit. It's
right.
just in
Yeah.
his
It's just
mind. But that's the conflict, right? And Ray was right. Leia saw it too. And I think a lot of us did. And another reason why I still never felt that he would ever be a supervillain. He just
right.
wasn't going to be it. Anyways, he tosses that bitch right into the ocean,
Yep.
and he's on his way basically to go meet up with Ray, which takes us pretty much into the third act, right?
Yep.
More or less.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the Emperor's new quarters, if you will. I mean, menacing, dark, intense. These are all words that describe what I was seeing in like the chanting from all his followers. So if you guys were wondering who all those followers were in that arena, yeah, man, they're just they're the people from that planet or whatever, and they believe in him and of course in what he's trying to do. And everything was just very super creepy. I was kind of loving
very
that.
haunting, like very just dark.
Right,
And
and,
yeah.
and you could feel it. I could see it in Ray's eyes too. And she was hearing all this stuff, and then finally you hear him talk, and she was literally just looking that way towards the throne, right? Which I think, again, Franz, our buddy who's now dog in the movie, he made the comment. He goes, what's up with this throne shit? This isn't Game of Thrones. It's not. And I'm like, I don't think it's the point so much that he thought he was a king, but Palpatine wants to be the supreme leader. It's what he always wanted. So say what you will, that man he wanted to be king of the universe. He didn't call himself king of the universe or whatever, but that's ultimately what he wanted to be. I mean, it just is. And so yeah, but seeing his now, okay, the looks for Palpatine. Mike saw it. I noticed it immediately. I just didn't bring it up. I know, Justin, you said you didn't fully tell it in the beginning, but yeah, I didn't really see. It looked like his face was a lot smoother, amongst coming down from the creases of his face until finally the end when you finally actually saw the makeup in decent form. So was that just a mistake on makeup department? And
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't see how that could have been missed though by
Right.
JJ and some of the others. This just seems too big. So I'd be curious to know what you all think about that. If you have any thoughts on why his makeup looked different from the beginning till the end when he finally faces Rey and then eventually Ben.
But even in the beginning, his hands were even very bony.
They
So I
were.
don't know if it was just like if they're just trying to say like a
Face
lot
was.
of the structure of his face was just kind of
Yeah,
flat.
but it did look different though between the scenes of earlier on. I mean, and I'll get a chance to watch this again on Sunday. I'm taking my boys and a few other friends, but I'll let you know. But it towards the end, you could definitely see a lot more now. And then someone could say, well, maybe it was the shadowing and something. But I don't know. There were some scenes where his face was very easily seen, in the light, and I just didn't see that really rough, coarse nature of it. It's a small thing, but all the same, a lot of us noticed it, I think. But
And I think this is
yeah.
where, so Act 3 is where I have a little bit of gripe about
Yeah, I think we all
what
do.
happened. You've got all the rebel forces coming in to attack this fleet, and apparently they can't
Hundreds of
turn on
ships.
their shields until they get to a certain elevation, like off the planet, which is managed by this dish or this tower.
Yeah, because didn't they
Um,
talk about how basically like the force around the gravity around this area, like
yes.
you don't know if you're up or down or something like that. So there's
Yeah.
a dish, I guess, that allows them to tell that they're basically
Yeah.
they're with the horizon.
And the plan was to bring in
Oh,
like the
great.
aerosol, but then have a ground team to take out the dish.
The
And I guess
dish.
my like, why couldn't the air team just take out the dish?
I think a lot of people were noticing that too.
I mean,
Now it could be argued maybe that maybe the defenses around, when it came to air defenses and how many ships they had, by the time they even made it there, mind you, if they didn't get taken out by the endless interceptors, TIE interceptors following them, all the other Star Destroyers and cannons firing at them, not to mention all the defenses of the actual main Star Destroyer ship they were going after, would there have been anybody really left to do the job they need to?
or
I
was it? Did they
think you're
mention the gravity wells and stuff being one of the reasons like they couldn't
I
fire at it?
I don't think that was an issue.
Okay.
In what they said they wanted to do the ground force. I remember also they said like remember when the carriers started opening up and then that General Pride was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Legion General Pride, which I'm so glad they brought back I feel like a commander who actually knew what he was doing, kind of.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he basically says, go ahead and jam all their speeders,
Speeders.
which
Yeah.
pretty much I guess made them useless. So I'm wondering, well, if they can do that to speeders, could they have done that to aircraft up to close to? It could be argued. I don't know. But when the ground force did open up, and yeah, when they first got out there, seeing the cavalry charge, I yelled
I mean,
out freedom.
it's a cool moment. It's a cool scene.
It is,
And
and it
it's
looked
like,
good.
okay. But I
Yeah.
guess they like to me it's just like they could have just done that with the ships already because they're already flying around shooting at stuff. Like couldn't they just shot that tower?
Yeah,
Couldn't Poe have shot that tower?
it probably would have been a lucky shot, and maybe Poe could have made it too. But I mean, as we saw, not many moments after that, when Rey's doing all the confrontation between her and the talking from the Emperor, and she looks up, and there's just literally
Yeah.
starfighter after starfighter getting dropped. And in fact, we even see, and this is where I think the emotional building, I agree, was definitely a loss for this one. So there was this larger guy. He had dark hair. He had made some comments earlier in the film. He's one of the main starfighters. He was in episode 7 as
Yeah.
well. What
Name is Snap.
Snap. So he dies.
Yeah.
They tag him, but the way they tag him, like they did that better in like the older films, like episodes like 4, 5, and 6, because they got like really close in on the cockpit, and he's
Yeah.
like, I can't shake him or whatever. Like,
Right.
give us a little something more than this. Like, just it was like boom, engines were hit, and he's going down, and Poe yells out. Which, mind you, okay, I'm glad to see Poe, and he's upset, but this is supposed to be about Snap dying, not. It's a mix. It's a delicate mix, but I feel like they missed out on a lot of great opportunities to build extra emotion on
Yeah.
people are supposed to care about.
Agreed. And so that character, not to go off too much of a tangent, but he's in a series of books called Aftermath
Uh huh.
that followed kind of a group of rebels after I believe it was after episode 6 is when it was set. Yes, it
Okay.
was. I read them. There's 3 books.
Yeah.
They were really good, and Snap was a young boy in those books.
I see.
And
So
that,
anybody who's read more will definitely be more attached to his character
yeah,
too.
and it talks about how he became a rebel,
Cool.
now resistance member
Yeah.
in those books. So it was interesting for sure.
Yeah. So again, character development. There's some other misses too throughout. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to get on like I said a tangent huge, but it's just people when you lose somebody like that, you should want to feel. And again, I felt bad that he got killed, but only just because there's that one guy,
Yeah, right. Oh, that's that guy with the beard. He's dead.
which isn't that much different, I suppose, than like Return of the Jedi, which hands down has the best space battles known, I think, in all the movies. But I mean, there are a lot of key figures that we saw their faces a lot, but we didn't really hear a lot from them. And then when they got killed, it was like, oh, not Green One, and
Right.
not Red
Oh, no,
Seven.
Green
Oh,
Um,
Jack Porkins, no.
I do think that they focused on the main characters in this movie.
They
which
did.
needed to.
Yeah.
Like a character like Rose. I kind of made a comment
Gosh.
during the movie when they were all like heading off of base, that forest base,
Earlier on.
and she was like, General Leia
Yeah.
thinks I need to stay behind. I'm like, thank God.
I know. I totally was. And this has, mind you, nothing to do with, in
Nothing
case
to do with her, or
her
ability.
being Asian, ability, stuff like that. She just wasn't an interesting character. Shame the writers for writing a poor character.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, she had potential at first, but then the journey you sent her on was bullshit to begin with. And the only reason we even still like Finn afterwards is because he was been here since the beginning episode 7, right? So she was only there for a movie. So it's like, do we really care that much?
Yeah, she's a supporting character.
She's
so like,
supporting.
let her support and don't try to make like a whole nother like main character out of somebody who just
Which,
isn't that
mind you,
interesting.
the characters that they gave us for this new generation Star Wars to finish off the saga, they weren't very strong to begin with. Kylo
Yeah.
definitely had the most arc right in between it all, and I guess Rey would be the next one. I mean, people can debate that one all day long. That's fine, but I think she'd be the next one up. But yeah, Finn, Poe, and honestly the rest of them, it's just kind of like, eh, you
Yeah.
know. I mean,
I like the fact that Finn was a defected stormtrooper.
that
That's a
w-
cool idea.
that was the great start, but then it
Yeah.
just kind of turned into
Yeah.
a. I mean, again for Episode 8, I think it would have been cooler to find out that there were other defected stormtroopers, along the way, and
Yeah.
maybe that would have been a way for Finn to connect and maybe get these people to help fight for them. Again, they use this in 9, but again, only because I think they had to force some more material towards us so they could fill in the blanks.
Not only that, but I feel like
Yikes!
they did the whole stormtrooper thing. But in those some of those books I talked about, the aftermath books,
Yeah.
there were some characters in there that were like defected, like officers, which would have been
Oh,
a really cool
now
idea
that's
because they
interesting.
had a lot of experience. Like
Heck yeah, yeah.
one was an interrogation officer, I think is what they called, or they called it. I don't remember what they called him, but it was like he interrogated like a lot of the
The
prisoners,
rebels
and
and
it
so on.
was like some pretty severe stuff.
Wow.
So like that would have been cool to see that aspect of it. Like I've done some terrible things, like really terrible things,
Yeah,
and
I
now
like it. Well,
on the other side.
it's not much different than the wars that we faced, right? I
Yeah,
mean, when you think about it, usually a lot of those people were put to war crimes, but all the same, it's an interesting concept. So let's finish this off and start
yeah,
talking about, I guess. So yeah, there was the menacing fleet, and yeah, our rebels are getting smeared everywhere. Before we finish off with the Emperor and what goes down in there, we see this huge. I mean, the force, which I assume was what's going to happen. I didn't expect to see as many ships as I saw, but I guess you would need that many, I guess, to take care of
yeah,
business. I thought what a better idea instead of how it went down is like if the Star Destroyers would have made their way off to different parts of the galaxy and were basically preparing or already in the process of like destroying planets, and you would have had some different force, excuse me, some starfighters groups set up doing it. Maybe Poe was leading the main force, and then maybe Snap was leading another one, and
yeah,
so forth.
yeah,
And then they could have been hitting back on them and so forth, and seeing like updates, kind of like they did in Return of the Jedi when they were kind of going between the different battles.
yeah. Not
But
all in one place.
because we really didn't see, because I remember I said to you guys, and I don't know if you heard about, I was aiming toward a pal. I said, man, I love me some space battles, but
Hmm.
really, it wasn't
You
the
didn't get that. Yeah,
no, it wasn't the space battle. So I'm gonna warn you now. If you were hoping for some major thing, I mean, it had some cool shots, but it really wasn't. Yeah, so that was a little bit of a letdown. And so yeah,
and then you got the kind of the resistance ships come in, and then they start to turn the tide,
right.
and then that's when so
Go ahead.
Ray is feeling hopeless, right?
Oh,
And
down
she's
in so
feeling like
she
she's
yes,
she's feeling like she's going to lose, and uh, the Emperor wants her to strike him down, kill him,
yep, and
and then
ascend or whatever she called it.
his soul or whatever would like basically go into her, and he would be part of her, and she would be the Empress Supreme. And he's basically convincing her, like, look at what's happening up there to your forces. Like, this is your only choice.
She was
And
this close.
and this was before the rest of the
Yeah, the
group
fleet
showed up,
even showed up.
because this is when Ben showed up on planet. So
Right.
she knew Ben was there, and Ben makes his way over.
So
That
he has to
he
fight off
runs
his
into
knights.
Knights of Ren, which was really like
They
I
gave him a
think that
little
was a
bit of
big
whooping.
gap. We never really got to see them until episode
Yeah,
9,
right.
and I know they were kind of teased in 7, and it would have been kind of cool to understand more like who they were and
Yeah, how
how long they
devious.
followed him.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, what? So, but it was
huh?
still cool to see him like run into them, and
When they did
was
that,
trying to fight him off, and he was kind of getting his ass kicked for a minute, and then that this was probably one of my favorite scenes of the movie was when Ray goes back to strike down
and,
Palpatine,
and
and then
hands it off.
she brings her hand back and it's empty, and then all of a sudden Ben
Yeah,
pulls it out from
because they
behind
did
him.
something
So
like that earlier, right? They
yeah,
foreshadowed
well
foreshadowed that. Pardon me.
so Ben or Kylo grabbed her necklace,
The
and there's
necklace,
a
right?
scene where
Yeah, when he
so
did.
the whole
Oh,
connection scene, right? They're in two different places, but they're connected, and you could see some of the materials or some of the environment
yeah.
kind of blends in with the other, and he was able to grab her necklace early on. So it kind of showed that like physically, and they did that in 8 too with the
Yeah.
rain scene. Like she was in the rain somewhere and he was talking to her and like reached out and then he pulled it back and like his glove was wet or something like that.
Oh,
So
that's right.
they
That's right.
kind of
And
teased that in 8 too. But dude,
yeah,
what a cool scene to
yeah.
show. Like,
He whooped them and then ran in there, and then they both line up together next to each other, and that's really cool because let's face it, we haven't seen a couple of Jedi together in a long, long time.
yeah,
And but then when he pulls that, I mean, he just knocks them both down. I mean, showing the true power of the Emperor. And if anybody wants to argue like, why is he so OP? I'd be like, are you serious? I mean, this dude is as strong. I mean, he beat Yoda. He beat
yeah.
Yoda ultimately. I mean, of course he
And then
was
he sucks. He basically sucks out their
life force and makes
life
him
force.
and gives him the ability to pretty much stand up and be powerful again. Oh my god! And so they're both down there, mind you. He probably should have just struck them both down and called it a day. But
Yeah.
you know, when you're that arrogant or whatever, I don't think it even matters to you. But that was a cool scene when when he threw Kylo off.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because Appel goes, man, I have a feeling like Ben's gonna die. I hope they don't do it. And then literally 2 seconds later, he kind of goes like this, and Ben goes flying down in this like ditch, or not ditch, but it looked like a huge
Big hole. Yeah.
that went down to Lord knows where. And I hear Appel go, oh, never mind.
Whoop, there goes that.
But I said, I was like, no, it can't be it. So, but yeah, so basically, Rey has a part where finally all the craziness is going, and all the Jedi start talking to her, right? And they're saying like, "We're with you, Rey." And now that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's not even that big of a concept, even, but the fact that they pulled it off like that, and hear all those voices, which, mind you, I couldn't decipher half of them, but I knew that they were there, and that was
Yeah,
cool.
I picked out Yoda. I picked out
Oh, Yoda was clear.
Luke. Picked out. I think I heard Qui-Gon in there.
Yeah, you say Qui-Gon.
I was listening for Obi-Wan. Apparently, his voice was in there, but I didn't catch it.
It's tough.
And
But they
apparently
do.
They reference some characters from like the Clone Wars animated series too. So that's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I didn't catch all of who they were. It was happening so fast. But
Yeah, but when she
it
got
was a
out of
powerful
there
moment.
and she pulled, because he says something about, I am the Sith or whatever, like, then she said, and she gets that, and she's just basically backing off the Force lightning into his face. And I think Mike said, man, didn't this dude learn the first time with Mace?
Mace, yeah.
But
Right.
this is like an Emperor's, standard move. So the idea that he thought that he couldn't pull this one off, I think it kind of makes sense to me. But it was quick. I think the fight scene sequence, whatever you want to call it, was very quick. But Jesus, seeing him just get disintegrated to like nothing, and then like the whole place just pretty much go bonkers crazy. But here's where then I get a little disappointed towards the end. Okay, so Emperor's dead. Hopefully that was going to happen. I didn't want to see the dark side win anyways. No, I never wanted to see it. But when Ben finally, he's getting out of the chasm or whatever, right? He's getting back to his feet, and Rey drops suddenly, and I was just very confused there for a moment because I was like, wait a minute, she was literally just fine a second ago when she defeated him. Why all of a sudden
Right.
did she fall to her death? Now,
Like what energy did she expend other than holding the lightsabers up?
right?
Unless it was like
Was she using something within her to
Yeah.
expel it back and like kind of like Leia
Maybe.
did?
maybe.
I mean, this, and by the way, it's such a brand new concept to us. It's hard to really fathom what are they truly doing. We don't really know much about it. We saw Leia do it. We saw Luke do it, kinda, I guess. And knowing that you can kill yourself as a Jedi, or excuse me, as a Sith or Jedi by doing that. But yeah, she drops, and at first I was like, maybe she's just in shock. But then I'm like, her eyes aren't moving at all. You know,
She did.
she
That girl
gone.
dead.
She gone. So Ben runs over to her, right? And then he tries to, which again, I'm thinking to myself, well, I mean, has Ben really had a chance to truly dabble into these powers? Or,
Right.
but maybe it was the point that since he saw it happen, I think part of the Jedi is believing that you can, right? Remember, Luke couldn't raise the ship. It's believing you can do this thing. And maybe he focused everything to bring her back. And when they look at each other and smiled, but then he dropped dead. And I was just like, I thought literally they were gonna just no, they're both fine and they'll both train Jedi
Yeah.
little ones, and he drops dead, and I'm just like, what?
And then I think Appel made a comment about, and now she's gonna bring him back.
Yeah. He goes, no, hold on, and I got to be honest. the way this was filmed, I mean, they could have gone in a couple different. They could have gone about 3 or 4 different ways on this, but I think it would have made more sense, honestly, for Ben to live with his full arc. But then I guess it would have been Ben's story. It wouldn't have been Rey's story, right?
Yeah.
But I think it would have been sold a lot more.
This was the end of his redemption, was to
Yeah,
sacrifice himself
for her.
for her.
And he disappears. He disappears.
And he disappears. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I assume maybe he might become a Force Ghost. But again, we never really got to see Force Ghosts. Thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, for basically blocking out all of Luke's scenes, including some of Christian Haydenson. Which, say what you want about Christian Haydenson, I think he's learned a lot from his acting. I've seen him in some more recent flicks after he took some time off and whatever. And I thought he did a really good job. I thought he did a really good job in the Revenge of the Sith. And or at least a very decent job at that matter. So, but yeah, guys, it was a long ride. It was a lot to take in. I'm still taking it in. You know, I remember Joe said he was gonna go see the movie 2 or 3 times before they gave a final review, but I don't think he's gonna do it. I think he's just gonna get right to it.
I would happily pay to see this movie again. Like I had fun with it that I'd be back and I would watch it and I would enjoy it again. There are probably some other things I could find to pick it apart a little bit, but again, like I didn't go into this movie with kind of the mindset of wanting to pick it apart. I went in with the mindset of thinking it wasn't going to be very good.
Yeah, I was definitely
waiting
there
for it to turn and like really lose me, and that didn't happen. It was fun. It was fast paced. There were definitely some flaws, but overall, it was a good movie. It compelled me. Like it kept my interest. I think there was some character development. I think there was a lot of emotion if you're really paying attention. Like it had all of that stuff in there, and it was it was sped up and it was on an accelerated timeline. But I mean,
it's what they were given with. It's what they were given to work with, and I don't know so much that should be an excuse. You know what I mean? Like, oh, he didn't have a choice and stuff like that. But I mean, you have to blame somebody, right? And I mean, I think if you really want to point fingers, you point it at their leadership and the choices that they made. And I think that's where it stands off. But I mean, if you're looking for the end to a large, long saga, I think they did the best they could with what JJ was given. I'm not saying JJ is the savior of all. No, he definitely is not. But I think he was competent enough to try and put together something that at least we could grasp onto and be like, see, we can still do Star Wars. It's just maybe not as great as you guys wanted it to be. I think that's the takeaway.
So where's your final number?
So I told you guys earlier that I was going between a 6.5 and a 7, and I think my ultimate score is going to end out at a 7.
I was at a 7. I was kind of between a 7 and an 8 right after the movie.
Yep.
But after really thinking about the flaw, and there were some flaws, and we talked about them. I think I'm at a 7.
And these are full points being taken off, guys. I mean, I don't think that because a movie is rushed that I'm automatically going to deduct 4 points on a 10-point scale. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, did the story still get told, and did you understand what was happening? And yes, the answer is I did. And by the way, it's not that hard of a concept. I mean, it was the Emperor back, and they had to stop him. I mean, Star Wars stories have never been that complicated. They're not meant to be, okay?
Right.
So, I mean, you could take off those points, but the visual effects on par. Or excuse me, they're on key. The sound was great. The action sequences, very exciting. I mean, yeah, could there have been some better hypes here and there? Sure, maybe. But pretty legit, right? Comedy, finally, back to where it needed to be. I think there's a lot of good things that you could add up the points and get there. And we may come back later on if we decide to and maybe show a list of things that maybe we deducted for if we wanted to. I don't know. We may not.
Yeah.
I can already see we're almost going on an hour 10 here, which was a long deal. But you know what? For those who stuck in, like I said, this is a very special movie. I was able to enjoy with some of my great buddies, and that also made it very exciting too. We were all going in, and because we all came out of there with the lowest of expectations, and most of us sat there and we were like, and Mike looked at me, he goes, I'm in the minority, and I was curious what he was going to say, and he goes, yeah. I really liked it, and I said, I kind of did too. And so I know we're not crazy. We see out there's a lot of other people that are really, really enjoying it. So they're not crazy either. And if you hated the movie, you're not crazy. It just didn't speak to you the way it spoke to us. So, this is where we are. Go out and start enjoying The Mandalorian. It's a great miniseries. I wish the episodes were longer, but they're not.
Yeah.
I think they got a second season already in the works and so forth like that. So we'll see where that goes. Maybe we'll do a quick review on this once I get caught up. And I think we're almost done with the season, aren't they, Dustin?
I think there's one more episode. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe later this week, if Dustin's available, we can come back and we'll talk over the just the overall. I don't think we're going to talk about each episode, but we'll talk about the highlights and if it's worth jumping in this Disney Plus thing, which is not super expensive, but it is another cost. It's another Netflix cost or Hulu or whatever the hell you're using. I know, Dustin, don't you have PS View like I do?
Yes.
So we both got to find new TV services now. Well, except I think you said you might just.
I'm just gonna be done. We were done in the beginning.
Okay.
We got PlayStation View because my wife wanted Hallmark for Christmas movies. That's it.
Oh, Jesus Lord. Who was the... Steph's mom does that. I can't stand it. I can't stand Christmas starts literally after Thanksgiving, not a damn day before. Yeah. But guys, for those who did stick in or jump through some of this, thanks for coming out and watching the Z-Man show. Again, Dustin comes on here. We do reviews. We're also 3 full days of filming for our Dead Nightmare series. We got one more day to do. Dustin's in a big part of this. I think you guys are really going to enjoy where we're taking this one. It could be one of the best ones to date.
I mean, it's hard to say when you're on set, but like it feels good filming. Like the scenes feel good. It'll be interesting to see when they're all put together. But I feel good about our chemistry and what we've shot so far for sure, and where the story's going. So.
Yeah, I'm excited to bring it to you, everybody, and Dustin's going to be a big part of it. He's one of the lead survivors and kind of. I'm more or less leading the crew between him and James, probably, but all the same. We have some more fun stuff coming very soon to show the guns. Got to work it out. So, with that said, it has been a pleasure speaking to all of you about this experience. Please comment down below if you did love or hate this movie or anything else in between. I just want to let's just talk about it a little bit. It's okay, and I'm not saying we're absolutely right, but as super diehard fans as we are, Star Wars fans as we are, I just feel that. I think we would know if something was really, really, really wrong with this movie, you know?
Yeah. And it's like you said, it's not like we're saying we're right and our friend Mike Franz is a complete bonehead for...
Even though we basically told him he was. I mean...
We won't be that direct with all of you, so... Comment your thoughts.
Comment your thoughts. Let's talk about it. And I'm going to go see this again on Sunday, so I may mention again in a review. I will have more on-time reviews coming in at you guys. I have a lot of movies I want to talk about that were decent in 2019, and I'm a little late, but all the same. It's just some extra content for you guys to watch. So, Dustin, if you have anything else for our crew members to say...
No, I think I'm good. I'd say go see the movie.
Go see the movie.
Like to see your thoughts, but I mean, I enjoyed it, so it's worth seeing.
All right, peeps, then. Well, this is Mike Schilling and Dustin Shelton, and we will see you guys basically, I guess, at the next review.